Let's have a conversation.
What's happening, everybody? Good evening. I've started to come on sometimes twice a day because when I come on in the morning, I know that a lot of y'all are at work. That's going to be my situation. In less than 2 months now, time really goes by. Time really goes by. I've been off for about a month at this point, and I'm not exactly counting down the days until when I go back. Um, I'm off because of family, personal reasons, which I have talked about on here, why I've been off. But thank goodness for this, which has been an outlet for me during this time. And I've been devoting a lot of time towards making this as good as possible. And I hope that when January rolls around, this is just going to be a well-oiled machine that can possibly who knows how far it can go. I'm not even going to put a limit or a cap on this. But anyways, before I begin, I wanted to ask you a favor, and that favor is please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell for when I drop some more great content. As you can see, my title here is that rest is not always self-care. And something I've learned is everything can be a trigger for people. So I know somebody will see that and be like, what are you talking about, Mark? Rest has so many things that it can do for you. It can restore healed muscles. That didn't even make sense. It can restore injuries to health. It's nighttime. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm tired. It can restore injuries to health. It can, regenerate certain cells. There's a lot of things that rest can do. You can look them up. There's a lot of scientific things that rest can do. But that's not really what I'm referring to. I'm not going down to a molecular level. This is not a science class. I want to explain exactly what I mean when I say that rest is not always self-care. Now, when I'm talking about rest is not always self-care, I'm thinking of something specific like facing a depression. I was diagnosed with clinical depression in about 2012. And during that time, I was on a lot of different medications and I rested quite a lot. I would sleep, to me, an abnormal amount of hours in a day, more than I ever had before in my life. And I actually felt like I am going to just rest off this depression until I feel better. But the thing is, there's no amount of sleep that is going to cure depression. Now, don't get me wrong. It helps if you have something like depression or anxiety to make sure that you get an adequate amount of sleep. Because if you're going days on end and not getting enough sleep, and you have that kind of mental health disorder, it's going to be hard for you. It's going to be harder for you to function in your day to day. But rest can be counterproductive towards you getting better in certain cases like that. And I can, as I usually do, relate that to myself. After I got my diagnosis, I said to myself, maybe I'm doing too much. And the truth is, I was actually doing too much at the time when I had that breakdown. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, and the labor was difficult. And I would still maintain my gym. I still maintained my multiple sports teams that I was on, and I still maintained my friendships and my social life. And I did everything but sleep. So sleep was a contributing factor for my anxiety disorder and my depression just shooting up and being at an all-time high. But the thing is, once that was not a factor, Once I was only resting, I wasn't working anymore, I didn't have a social life anymore, and I was trying to sleep it off in hopes that I'll get enough sleep to get better. There's not enough sleep to make things better. I'm going to compare this to a shoulder injury that I had last year. It's still not 100% better, but I would say we are 85%. So when I first got the injury, it was weirdly doing a bicep curl. It was weirdly to me at the time, but now I understand what happened is that the curl that I was doing was too heavy for what I was capable of. So I wasn't fully utilizing the bicep muscle. I was using my traps. So as I was trying to use the traps to compensate for not having the bicep strength to get the weight up properly, I strained that muscle. And my first instinct, well, not even my first instinct, when I went to the doctor, they prescribed me pain meds. As you know, that's a typical Western medicine thing to do. Give you some pain meds and tell you to rest it, right? So I took the pain meds and I rested, and then my shoulder ended up being like this. It healed like this. It healed like this. And it wasn't better though. The injury never actually really healed, especially because this was a shoulder that I was going to use again for weightlifting, for races, and for general things that I need my shoulder for, right? Rest was not the answer in that case, or at least not that type of rest. Because when I went to physical therapy, they told me that you needed to do an active rest, which involved stretching, which involved some lightweight or no weight exercises to strengthen the muscles and to improve the flexibility and to make sure that there is circulation within the shoulder. And then it involved me strengthening all the muscles in my back as well, all the muscles around and my back and my triceps. Some people might not really understand what I'm talking about, but if you have either had one of those injuries or if you're in the medical field, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So there was a lot of things that I had to do. Rest was a part of it. Don't get me wrong. Rest was a part of it because I couldn't just jump right back in there and be like shoulder pressing really heavy weights or doing really heavy stuff with my shoulder for sure. But there was other activities required. So the oxymoron, I guess you could call it, about depression is that I think that it requires you to actually push yourself. And a lot of times people see somebody with depression and their advice to them is to slow down, is to rest. And there's some cases where rest is important, but those are the cases where somebody is doing too much. In a lot of cases, there's people who face depression and their life comes to a halt. They stop working, they stop leaving the house, they aren't really doing anything except for, I don't know, sleeping, maybe watching TV, watching Netflix, going on the phone. You know, they're not really doing much of anything. And I say that as somebody who has been in that position before for a long time. And to heal, it actually required me to step outside of my comfort zone, rest a little bit less. Now, I'm not saying you're going to go from a place in a position of sleeping and drowning your sorrows away in your bed to tomorrow you're running all over your state or city or country or wherever it is that you, whatever you're doing, and just jumping into a bunch of hobbies and doing a whole bunch of things overnight. For sure, you're not going to do that. But you have to make some kind of goals for yourself and goals for what you want to do with your life. And especially if you're in the middle of a very deep depression, every day your mind is going to tell you, even if you have scheduled those things out, your mind is going to be like, just rest one more day. One more day of rest, just one more day of rest, and you're going to be better tomorrow. A day can turn into 2 days pretty quick, and then 3 days, and then a week, and then it could turn into 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 5 months, 6 months, 8 months. And next thing you know, you don't even know what it's like to not be resting all the time, and to not be over resting, not even just resting, over resting, oversleeping. And there's things that happen to you too when you're doing that. Like, your body is only meant for a certain amount of sitting down and lounging around. And I feel like we have a use it or lose it policy. We don't use our bodies. They don't work for us later. Use them while you can. Use them while you can. So to summarize, the way that I say that rest is not always self-care is that rest is sometimes giving in to that voice that tells you tomorrow is going to be better. Just rest a little bit longer and we can do it tomorrow, and we can do it tomorrow, and we can do it tomorrow. And that can become a vicious, endless cycle. So there are times, especially when we're dealing with something like depression, where we actually have to say to ourselves, I can rest a little bit later after I put in a little bit more towards accomplishing my goal. And then we start to push that goalpost a little, where let's say I'm resting, I'm awake for 16, 12. I don't know. I can't think of a number, but let's just for argument's sake, say that I am awake for 10 hours a day, and I want to bump that up so that I'm up for 12 hours a day. So you start slowly. I'm going to stay up for an extra 10 minutes, or I'm going to schedule this activity or whatever. You push it a little bit, and then, okay, this day I was able to do that. And then you push it a little bit more. And then next thing you know, you're back into a routine that has activity and has adequate activity, because sometimes activity is what fosters the healing, and sometimes over rest can slow the process. So that's my little video about rest not always being self-care. I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a comment, give me some feedback, and I hope to see all y'all soon. Have a great night.